Hi guys, thanks so much for watching. Speaking of, I'm Stephanie and I am here with Jessica Brewer, who is the Chief Operating Officer at AmplifiedAg, and she was also the former SVP of Engineering and Global Services. Is that correct? Did I say that right?
That's right. That's
Okay.
right.
At Benefitfocus. How did you use all of the things that you knew from your own career, from your own experiences, and then from the resources available to help your kids figure out what they want to do?
It's interesting because, and I've actually taken my kids to hear me speak at, a few different events. And I've always tried to like engage them in my work or whatever I'm doing. But sometimes kids just don't want to listen. They don't think their mother knows anything. My biggest, I guess, thing is just pick something that you're passionate about, and hopefully you'll make some money so you're off my payroll one day. But life's too short to not have fun, and I can honestly say, I've always had fun, and that's like the point of life. So if you're in a job where you're miserable, only you can change that. And no job is worth your happiness, and you got to believe in yourself enough that you do deserve to be happy, and there is something else out there for you, and you got to take that chance.
What do they think of your career?
When they were young, I don't think they could comprehend what my job actually was. They're like, well, she does something in computers, when you're real young, you have to like draw pictures of like your mom at work, and so they would always draw me in suits because, back then everybody wore suits. And so I wore a suit and I worked on computers. And I think the proud mama moment I had, my son had a couple kids spend the night one night, and I could overhear them talking, and two boys were talking about their moms and saying, they were talking about how their moms don't know how to use the computer, they can't do anything on the computer, whatever. And my son was like, well, my mom does everything on the computer for us, and she runs a company with all people that's all they do is program the computers. And it was like, he said it so proud and almost like, what are you kidding me? Like, your mom, like, shouldn't all moms know how to,
right,
work on a computer, operate a computer? Not in a degrading way towards them by any means, but it was more like his role model or his image of a mom was somebody that was technical, that could, work on computers, even if he didn't really understand what that meant all the way. And that's the stereotype he had, not what the other kids were saying, that, more of that, well, she's a girl and doesn't know how to, whatever. So I was thankful that I've been able to at least provide, that view for my children, both of my children.
What do they think of Amplified Ag? Because with that, you're creating healthy produce through hydroponic farming and technology and everything else. So it's just a whole new front that you guys are engineering into a new way of life.
Yeah, I think my husband and his daughter founded the company, and, it was pretty exciting then. At first, it was kind of like, you're doing what? Like, he had this drive to give back to the community and really revolutionize the way that food is produced and distributed. And he decided to leverage his background in technology, and he built hydroponic farms inside of recycled shipping containers. And it's just been really impressive. I think my kids find that social mission, something to be proud of. Their friends eat our lettuce, buy it from the grocery stores and eat it. They go to restaurants and see it, so I think they, like having that association. They make fun of me a little bit. You can't tell, but I'm like in a dress right now. And I typically wear dresses or whatever to work. I'm not necessarily in the farming gear. So they like to make fun of me that I'm a farmer nowadays. We had a group of school children prior to the pandemic come into the farms, And their teacher had asked them to draw a picture of what they thought farms look like and farmers. And as you can imagine, they drew a picture of the traditional farm, you know, with the old man and his pitchfork with the straw hat. That was the farmer, right? And then they came and toured our facility and learned about indoor farming and the benefits of it, and you know, from a multitude of ways, you know, just being able to be contained and control the environment, having the technology to do the automation to feed and control the environment. And most of our team that's farming is young, and most of the team that's farming is female. And so when the teacher asked them to draw a picture after the visit to the farm, they drew basically like kind of vertical farms, and then they drew a picture of a young girl with pigtails and a t-shirt, and you know, kind of what the girls wear in the farms. They have a, you know, vertical t-shirt and like either leggings or whatever, jeans. And you know, so we're really changing, you know, the way people think about farming and farmers. And so it's pretty cool.
Are people just mind blown when they come through and see, you know, all these containers? And because it is like you go to the store and you just see lettuce and you don't really think about where it comes from. But when you go there and then you see how it's farmed indoors in these containers,
Right.
You probably, like, especially little kids like that, they just have to be mind blown.
Yeah. Well, it's a sight to see. It's just, I think usually the first reaction is they can't believe it's such a beautiful color. You know, we're so used to getting our produce shipped from California, Arizona, like, you know, 95% of the produce comes from those two states. So it's got to go through a lot just to physically get to us here on the East Coast. And, you know, ours is so much fresher, right? And we are controlling the environment to maximize the plant growth. So they're big, beautifully colored plants, which the more color too, also usually the more vitamins and nutrients, nutritional value. So I think that they're just struck by the greens and the reds, the colors that they see, that just the brightness, the richness of it.
You said you were surrounded by strong women, but that you grew up, you didn't have a lot of money, but yet you knew that college was always going to be something that you were going to do to reach these dreams. So it seems like you had concrete ideas, you know, certain like mile markers almost, that you knew that you wanted to do or had to do. Where did the drive to reach those come from?
Good question. It's based on a lot of your experiences. I knew, you know, just the circumstances of my childhood, that I've got needs. I have a certain lifestyle, and I'm not embarrassed to say that. And I'm not trying to brag by saying that. I enjoy the life that I live, and I knew it was going to require, you know, hard work in order for me to get what I have today. And I never gave up. I mean, it wasn't easy. I had to pay for my own school. I had to pay everything. I had some scholarships, but I worked a full-time job when I was in college. And then I didn't stop there. I went and got my master's degree while I had a 3-year-old at home, and I was pregnant with the second. I could have had many excuses to stop. And I was driven. I had support at the time. Obviously my husband was helping, take care of the kids, and we had other income to help, but it still takes discipline to, go to work every day and then go do work at home, spend time with your children, and you're pregnant, and then write papers and, whatever. But it was something that I don't know. I always felt that I had to do, just like I had to go to high school. I had to get my college degree. I had to get a master's degree. I knew if I did those things that I would be okay, and I could do whatever in life.
What were your big career challenges?
Some of the growth that we faced, just from a technology perspective and trying to keep up, and and prepare the platform for the growth. I mean, that was hard. I would say building and managing teams of people is hard too, in a different kind of way. It's not easy managing humans, right? It's, people have, personal challenges that they face, all kinds of things. And so when you're trying to keep people focused on the same goal and driving, to a certain outcome, there's a lot of things that get in the way to, prevent that. And so trying to help manage people, build the teams, keep the teams, and manage people through that, isn't easy. And we had hundreds and hundreds of people, here and in different locations. And I think, at one point, just my world was about 700 people. And I would say the people part, sometimes people let you down. The amount of loss that I've experienced, manager of people, just whether it was, I've had people on my own team pass away. I've had members of people on my teams, their families, or horrific accidents, or, all kinds of, heart-wrenching things. And yet at the same time, I would say that was one of the best, one of the things I like the most about my job, as backwards as that sounds. It's like I really saw the best of people during the worst of times, and I wouldn't trade that experience. I feel like people just let me come into their home. A lot of times I was the person at the company that would go and be with the family that was experiencing, whatever. And they let me in, and they let me be a part of their family. And I have relationships today with them, and, because we shared this time together. And yet it wasn't my loved one. It wasn't my child, or, whatever. And they're seeing their strength and the courage, it's just very inspiring. And then at the same time, there's a lot of positive. I've been to a gazillion weddings and baby births and hospitals seeing babies born. I had one woman that used to work for me. She was introduced, we were at an event that I was speaking at, and she introduced me to a group of her friends. And she said that I was the first non-family member to hold her baby, but it can take a toll, right? I remember my daughter asked me one time, why do I always have to be the one to, be there when someone's dying or whatever? And it's hard to articulate to a child, but there's no place I would rather be other than being with my own children. Because I do feel like it's important. I think it's important during, especially the worst times, and sometimes the best of times, that people feel like you care and that you genuinely do.
How do you handle the pressure of such high expectations at work, not just doing the job, but also all of those personal aspects that you just discussed, and then still knowing that you have to be at home and be a mom and go to the soccer practice and the football practice and do all of that?
Maybe one thing that's an attribute of mine is I genuinely don't care what people think of me. Of course, I like people to like me, and things like that, but I don't lose any sleep over worrying about or dwelling over, what anybody thinks. So in some ways that gives you a little bit of confidence to, or at least it did for me, to set boundaries for myself, because no one else is going to do that for you, right? So I had to take my children to school. That was a non-negotiable. If you wanted me to be in a meeting, then you needed to work around that, right? And obviously there are times where, there might be an exception here or there, but I think for the most part, I was good at articulating what I was a mom first. And the second that I couldn't be that, I would have left my position at my company, because it's like the one job you can't afford to fail, and I've never been afraid to leave a company just because I know I always do feel like I could get another job. Worst case, I could go program again or whatever, So I never felt like I ever had to be trapped, in a position or whatever, which is also pretty empowering too. But everybody was always respectful, and really tried to work around whatever, now you can't slack off and not get stuff done and whatever. So you still have to work hard. I did a lot of stuff at night, when the kids would go to bed, and things like that, just to enable me to have the flexibility. It was important to me to be able to be there for all of those moments, whether they end up remembering it or not. It mattered to me, and I don't think I could have been, probably as good at my job or whatever if I wasn't feeling like I was being a good parent. And of course, there's some days where you might feel like you're doing better at work than you are being a mom, or vice versa. But as long as it's like a every now and then thing, that's okay.
When I was talking to somebody else who said something very similar, said you have to set these boundaries, and it can be challenging at first when you start to do that. But I think there's this inherent fear that it's not going to be okay, or that people are going to think that you can't do your job, or that it's going to hinder career advancement. But in the case of what you're saying, and in the case of what this other person said, they both said nobody really cared. They were totally fine to continue doing what they were doing. How do you get people to understand that that is okay? Is that something that you had to work with when you had people on your team who might have been working a bajillion hours? Did you have to say, look, you need to go do this?
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly, even recently, actually, where I told somebody not to work on their vacation. I'm like, you need to spend time with your family. Like, and they were already, as they were preparing us for, who was going to be their backup and whatever. And she was like, well, I'll still log in. I'll do blah, blah. I'm like, no, like that kind of defeats the whole point of having a break. Like, we need you to totally shut down and get refreshed. And if you're worrying about all this other stuff, you're not doing anyone any good, and like, just totally focus on your family. Now, I kind of am going to speak out of both sides, because I also worked in a job where I was literally like 24/7, right? So I was on call all the time. So I couldn't all the way flip it off, but I got to a point in my career where I one time was in the Turks and Caicos in the Caribbean in a pool, okay, looking over beautiful blue water. And a customer called me, and it was like around 4:30 or so. And I had a blue cocktail drink even. And I remember thinking, like, cause my cousin I brought my cousin and her family, and she was like, why are you answering your phone? You're on vacation, and I'm like, this is the nature of my job. I'm going to be there for when people need it. And, if I have to work and I'm looking at beautiful blue water sitting in my pool with my blue drink, I mean, it doesn't get better than that, So I found a way to kind of blend it. You have to set those boundaries. If you're waiting for him to do it for you or her to do it for you, it's never going to happen. You have to take that responsibility on yourself. I think there's some roles and some positions where, maybe that's not an option. Well, maybe then you need to find a different position or a different role so that you can have what matters to you. And then I would encourage them to not be afraid of that.
What is the advantage of being a woman in tech?
Being a woman in a largely male-dominated field, I always, I guess, saw it as an advantage, even though in many ways, clearly, it could have been a disadvantage, right? It is, statistically speaking. There's all kinds of stats that we could throw out there. But I always thought that I'm as much as I'm like one of the guys, and I have a lot in common with them and similar interests, I am clearly a woman. I mean, there's really no mistake in that. I like to say I'm all a woman. And I've not ever been shy about that. And I think, it actually, you know, benefited me throughout my career too. I stood out, you know, so I didn't look like everyone else. I was, you know, I had softer skills that enabled me to maybe better communicate with customers, which was an advantage. So whether you call that a female thing or not, I don't know. But anything that made me unique and gave me a leg up on someone else, I mean, I think that's an advantage, right? You know, I had ways to interact with the guys, you know, as peers, and then ultimately, you know, as when they were on my teams. But you know, I like to think that a lot of them kind of like to brag about the fact that they had, you know, a strong woman manager and breaking down barriers.
Where are you going to be in 5 years? What's next for you?
Oh, 5 years from now. I guess I would say I have a new adventure that I've just kicked off, which I'll formally announce to you at another time. I started a company with a couple friends, and I'm going to act as the CEO and president, and it's kind of a micro SaaS software company. So I'm really excited about that. I expect in 5 years we'll be killing it and able to maintain kind of the lifestyle and culture that we're setting off to establish. And I hope to be sitting my little butt on a warm beach in the Caribbean, no coronavirus, and looking at beautiful blue water, working from anywhere, because now we know we can, right? Everybody can work remote now. You know, it's funny thinking of 5 years because my daughter will be out of college, my son will be in. It's just going to, in some ways, feel like just such a different chapter in my life. You know, but I suspect I'll still have lots going on and probably have other ventures and businesses that I'm involved in along the way. So I don't think there'll be a dull moment. I don't think I'll be bored in 5 years.
No.
I tried to retire once. It didn't work.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot of really great things on the horizon. So I'm excited to hear about those too.
Yes, I am super excited. Super excited. We're just getting started, but I'll have lots more to share.
I'm sure it'll be amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciated it and hearing your story and all of your thoughts and everything. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you guys for watching Speaking of. Bye.
Bye.